Welcome to Girls Guide How to Get Away with Middle School. I'm your host, Maddie, and every week we chat about the stuff that really matters academics, friendships, and just figuring things out. We've got tips, stories, and a few laughs along the way. So kick back with me and let's make this middle school journey a bit easier and a lot more fun. I'm your host, Maddie, and in today's episode, we will be discussing labels and stereotypes. Why do we use them? How they've been used throughout history, and when and how to use them. So, many of you may be wondering what labels and stereotypes even are. So, a label is a classification by like a name or a phrase, and they're usually inaccurate or restricting to people or a group of people. And a stereotype is a popular and oversimplified image or view of, again, a person or a group of people. Now, you may be wondering why these are even important to a middle schooler. It's important because things like labels and stereotypes can be extremely harmful to people both in and outside of school. So it's important to understand when and how to use labels and stereotypes in order to not hurt the people around us. Let's get a little bit more specific with labels. So, some examples of labels that you might hear in middle school or just in school in general could be like a nerd or a jock. And like these terms may seem really cringy and outdated, but at one time they held a lot of weight and seriously hurt people. And you can even see the effects of terms like these in like modern media. Like in a lot of teen movies, I know like The Princess Diaries, for example, there's like a nerdy or weird girl or guy and like a mean jock. And it like pushes a narrative of if you're good at athletics, you're mean or kind of dumb, or if or like nerds, quote unquote, are gross and weird and awkward. And obviously, these narratives can really, really hurt people, and it can discourage people from wanting to hang out with people like this or even wanting to pursue things they like for fear of being made fun of or perceived in a light that they don't want to be perceived in. Alright, now that we've discussed some more in-depth labels, we're gonna take a look into stereotypes. Stereotypes, at their most basic form, are just assumptions based on the way someone looks, their gender, or what they're interested in. And naturally, you can see how stereotypes could be harmful. Some stereotypes that you can see in school are that girls are bad at sports or kids that like anime are weird. Now, stereotypes can deter people from expressing certain interests or hobbies or talking with specific people because they don't want to be judged for hanging out with those people. Like, stereotypes can discourage girls from wanting to play sports because they don't want to be made fun of or called bad at sports. And you can see like that stereotype in a lot of teen drama movies where you can see girls dodging balls in gym class, walking around, not paying attention, or just overall being portrayed like they have no idea what's going on in any sort of athletic setting. Which is it's a stereotype that you can even see nowadays but was more pronounced further back in time. So, I know you're probably thinking, if stereotypes are so harmful, why do we even use them in the first place? So, stereotypes have helped people categorize the world around them in order for the world to make sense to them for so long. Because if you think about it, when you're trying to make sense of things, you want to fit them into a category that you've already established in your mind. Like, my plate. How you have protein, you have fruit, you have vegetables, you have dairy, and you have grain. You've set certain objects into certain categories so that they make sense when you're making a plate of food. It's really similar to that. You're going to put people in certain categories so that when you're talking to them, it makes more sense in your mind. Or it helps you decide if you do or don't want to talk to them, how much you want to share or how little you want to share. And so that's really why humans like use labels and stereotypes, because it helps them to understand the world around them so that they can make appropriate social interactions. But they can also be extremely hurtful and harmful to people. And Labels and stereotypes are obviously not a new thing. Humans have used them all throughout history. An example of a historic stereotype that you can still see nowadays is the damsel in distress, which is pushed in media like movies and TV shows to this day. Like, this stereotype you can recognize better in earlier Disney movies like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White, where the princesses are expected to sit tight and wait for a prince or another strong male character to save them. Nowadays, this trope isn't pushed as hard in media, but you can still find it if you look for it. And it back then it helped to push the narrative of women not being in the workforce, but it's not used as much anymore because a lot of women work and don't stay home. And so they're not using that stereotype to push that narrative anymore, as it's not as common. So, while stereotypes can be extremely negative, it's also important to recognize some positive ones. Now, before I start to give some examples of positive stereotypes, there's also a negative side to every positive one, or a positive side to every negative one. Um, like the damsel in distress, it seems bad, but it makes for some really, really good movies. I'm not discrediting any of these Disney movies. I think they're great. I love Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. And they build up the idea that men are strong, and they are. But it also hinders a woman. So it's a bad stereotype, but it's not necessarily always 100% harmful. And so even these quote unquote good stereotypes or positive ones can still be negative. So an example of a quote unquote positive stereotype could be that quiet kids are really smart, because it builds up quiet kids and it can help people want to talk to and hang out with the quiet kid more because they think they're really smart. And a lot of times people want to be around smarter people because they think that makes them smarter. But it can also be negative, as it can put unwanted stress on quieter kids and make them feel like they have to be some sort of child prodigy or genius, or they don't fit in with the other kids like them. And labels and stereotypes often push unfair expectations onto whatever group of people they're singling out. They ignore individuality. They ignore the part of you that makes you you. You know, all of your separate and unique hobbies and interests. They ignore that by pushing you into a metaphorical box. They put a lot of pressure on people because they feel like they need to fit into this box and they need to act this way and they need to be like all the people who are like them. Like, if you're good at sports, you have to be you have to be arrogant and confident and proud of yourself. But sometimes someone wants to be good at sports and they want to be quieter and more, like, they want to be studious and quieter, but they feel like they can't be because no one around them is like that. Labels and stereotypes also push unfair expectations onto people. Just because someone's quiet, they shouldn't be expected to become valedictorian of their graduating class. They can be quiet and really, really bad at school, or someone can be really, really loud and amazing at academics. It pushes the unfair expectation of having to be the best at whatever your quote unquote stereotype is. And it's part of the reason why people say don't judge a book by its cover. It's basically saying get to know someone before you put them in this predetermined box of what you think they're going to be. Because you may think that someone's really weird or you don't want to talk to them because they're mean, but they could become one of your best friends after you get to know them. So I want to challenge you all to try and get to know people better before you put them into a box. And once you know someone and you've talked to them, it's okay to be like, oh, they're this type of person. Like, if you talk to someone and you know them and they're really sarcastic and they're really arrogant and they're honestly quite mean, it's okay to then put them in a box of, this is a person I don't really want to hang out with because they're mean. But you shouldn't look at them and be like, I don't want to hang out with them. They look mean. You want to say, I don't want to hang out with them because I know they're mean. You don't want to put someone in a box before you have a couple conversations with them, is what I'm saying. Now, if someone is mean and you don't want to hang out with them because you know that and you've talked to them, then don't. But don't discredit someone just because they look like they're mean. Or don't automatically assume that someone that looks really cheerful and bubbly is super, super nice, because they could be really, really mean. Get to know someone and be like, I want to hang out with this person because we share a lot of interests and they're really, really nice. Not because I want to hang out with this person because they look like they're really, really nice. So, basically what I'm saying is, talk to people, have conversations, discover interests and hobbies that you share, and then decide how much of your time you want to spend with them. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to hang out with anyone you don't want to, regardless of whether people think they're nice or they're mean. But it's important for people to understand how things like labels and stereotypes can affect the people around them before they go around spreading rumors of, well, that kid looks weird, so we shouldn't hang out with them. All in all, thank you for joining me on this episode of How to Get Away with Middle School. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, make sure to leave a comment and let me know what topics you'd like to hear about next. Feel free to drop any of your experiences with labels and stereotypes in the comments, along with any questions you may have about today's episode. Make sure you subscribe to see more. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll see you in the next one.